Hello from Dream Vacations. We look forward to helping you plan a cruise vacation where you can race your friends on the top deck while cruising the oceans, or you can compete with your friends in style with virtual reality racing on board. If cruising is not for you, we can send you to Germany, where you can challenge the ring, or whisk you off to Abu Dhabi to take on the world's fastest roller coaster in Ferrari World. Whatever your dream vacation may be, let Dream Vacations handle the details and make that dream into a reality. Visit us at www.travelwithanangel.com.
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Padovani rebounded from losing last season's championship by claiming first blood in round 1. But his fight wasn't with teammate Overbay as we expected. Newcomer David Unger from Down Under forced Jefferson into some hard racing in the first half. But the pit stops proved to be the Aussie's weakness, with him losing an insurmountable 8 seconds on the lane. Will he have learned his lesson and improve his game here at Road Atlanta? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch the round 2 of the PRL Radical Racing Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Nick Schmeg. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Nick, if we go by last year's race, Road Atlanta will certainly keep us on our toes. There's a lot of action packed in a short lap here.
Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely going to keep us on our toes for sure, but it won't just be us. Road Atlanta is a track that likes to keep the drivers on their toes as well. It's such a unique circuit with so many challenges that are going to haunt the drivers each and every lap. It all starts in turn 1 with a deceptively fast right-hander similar to turn 1 at Brands Hatch. From there, drivers have to hold it through the rapid downhill S's and try not to become part of an attrition stat where they come up to the harsh curbing of turn 5. Throw in a double apex and a long straightaway to create runs down into a tight left-right chicane, and you've made up one lap around the 12th turn, 2.5-mile, 4-kilometer course. Racing history started here when it opened in 1970, and it's been a North American motorsports staple ever since, most notably hosting the Petit Le Mans every year in IMSA. Whether it's with a sports car, a stock car, a club car, a motorcycle, or an open-wheeled car, racing at Road Atlanta has been eventful to say the least. To get an idea of what we'll see in the Radicals tonight, though, is to send you down to the track and strap you in for the GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Stefan Schlacker in the GSRC Radical, so let's do a lap around Road Atlanta. Down into turn 1, most tracks offer good passing at the first corner, but not this one. It's fast, and having any sort of off is likely to end in damage. But you're quickly climbing up a steep hill, and at the blind crest is turn 3. This is one of the most difficult corner entries in racing, so expect a lot of unforced errors from drivers through here. The track then immediately flows into the S's, where it's flat out in the Radical. But at the end of it is turn 5, where you get a lot of compression on the way in and then no grip on the way out. This is by far the spot you'll most often see races ended. You finally get a short break before turn 6, which, even though you might sometimes see passes into it, the car carries far more speed than you'd expect with its banking. It also takes you directly into 7, which is the most important corner of the lap. With it being low speed, finding grip will be difficult, but critical because of the long backstretch that follows it. Get a bad run onto here and expect to get swallowed up by anybody close behind. The draft will also bring about a number of battles, and drivers are going to be hungry to get by. This is all helped by the heavy braking into the final chicane, where anyone side by side will have to play a game of chicken. And yet, the fight's usually not over as you come out of it, because you'll often see drivers use a switchback to carry their speed and retake the position up and over the hill. But as you round the final corner, you've now hopefully finished a lap around Road Atlanta. That onboard should give you an idea of why they sometimes call this place the roller coaster, with all the crazy elevation change around a lap. But I want to mention the PRL Radical Racing Series is brought to you by Dream Vacations. Dream Vacations provides completely customizable vacation packages from your door to your destination and back. Go to travelwithanangel.com and let us worry about the details. Big thank you to Dream Vacations for coming on to sponsor this season. Let's take a look at the championship order, starting with the drivers' points, now that we've got one on the board. We, of course, have the likes of Padavani leading it since he won the race, and David Unger in second. But look at that. It's 2 Australians up there in the top 5. In fact, it's kind of interesting that a North American series has a South American and 2 Australians in the top 3, and then you get down to those U.S. flags there with Eric Harmon and Mark Feil rounding out your top 5. We also have a teams championship. How does that play out after one round, Nick?
Well, the top American driver was in 4th place, but one team that is very popular in America here, at least on iRacing, is the Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing Team. Overbay and Padavani, they lead the team standings after one round. Left side drive racing, well, they seem to be doing pretty well to start the season for a right side drive car. They're 2 points back. 25 points back is Project 2 Racing. And then a pair of Canadians making up Lone Tranny Racing, just 2 points back from a podium position. There are currently 2 teams tied, just 1 point behind them as well for a top 5 position.
Very tight over there. We like to see that in the team's championship. Today's race, as we mentioned, will be round 2. They do get a drop week in these points, we should mention, so you are allowed a little bit of room for error if you have a bad race somewhere along the lines. The setups on these cars are open, but they've restricted the fuel compared to what the real cars can carry on board. And that means that you can expect 1 pit stop in this 45-minute race. They also have an incident cap at 24. What that means is if they have an off track, a spin, or make contact with the wall or another car, they rack up incident points. They will be disqualified when they hit 24 of those, just to try and keep the racing clean and also prevent anybody from abusing the track boundaries. They have no spare car, as some series do, to keep them safe. If you get damage on it, you'll have to come in for repairs or just simply deal with it out on the track. Taking a look at the... Actually, before we take a look at the qualifying, let's take a look at one of our, not sponsors necessarily, but proud supporters here in the Precision Racing Leagues. That is the iRacing Esports Network. They brought us on for another season of coverage. We definitely encourage you to subscribe so that you can catch all the races in your YouTube feed, but not just PRL. Also, don't forget the official World Championship Series here on iRacing can be found on IESN, as well as many other private leagues. So click that big red button that says subscribe and don't miss a moment. Now we can take a look at the qualifying. Eric Luke currently still at the top, and he is still waiting for that first win that he's been looking for. He had a bad race last week. He unfortunately had 2 spins in the same spot, hit the same piece of Armco 2 laps in a row. See if he can avoid it this time. He's going to have to fend off, Nick, the likes of David Unger, who's already next to him on the front row.
That is where David Unger is now, and man, he looked fast last week, and he's really surprised a lot of drivers coming into this series and being so fast. We expected Padovani to battle with drivers like Overbay or maybe Ambrosi, but for David Unger to finish second last week at Watkins Glen, that was really something to start the season for him.
See, he had a little bit of a slip up in turn 5. This is Rem Ambrosi, who's coming through that very corner himself. Number 63, looking a lot more successful. I can report that Unger's actually been bumped to row 2 because Eric Luke has actually been bumped to second. It's Christian Gritzko now on the pole. Another driver that's looking to redeem himself and come back with a better result. We saw multiple spins from him last week, Nick.
Yeah, not just him. We saw multiple spins from a lot of people. Watkins Glen last week, a very attrition-filled race. Only 10 drivers finishing on the lead lap. And if this race here today at Road Atlanta is anything like the one we had last season in PRL, we might see something a little bit similar to that today as well.
Well, let's talk about Padovani and as well a little bit about Overbay. You might be wondering where they are. Well, Overbay is actually sitting in 5th, and Jefferson hasn't shown up yet. So he might take this one as his drop week if he doesn't get out here soon. They've only got 4 minutes left on the qualifying. Rosie's still sitting in that 6th position, but that's really not a doom sentence for Ambrosi. That's where he started last race, and he wound up getting on the podium. Watching him trailing his teammate, Christian Gritzko, trying to get a little bit of draft. This track usually is associated with draft and some of the lower powered cars. What about in the Radical here on this backstretch? Is this going to be enough to get a slingshot? Is it going to look like Watkins Glen, or is this just only going to be enough to just kind of stay behind someone?
Well, I think the drafting at Watkins Glen and the effect that it really had going up through the S's and onto the backstretch, even out of the inner loop and headed down into the carousel, it really kind of surprised you and I last week as to how powerful it was. This is a bit longer of a backstretch here, so I would definitely expect to see a couple of big runs come out of that tight double apex and go all the way down the backstretch. We might see some 2 or even 3 wide passes being made there in this race.
Let's see if the draft helps Ambrosi, and it does not. Still needs to improve on that 15.6. He's got a couple more laps. They do get around here rather quickly. Now, what about Eric Harmon? Fantastic race last week. Was battling with Overbay towards the end of it. Harmon's not going to finish this lap. Could still yet get out for one more hot one. But look at that pit entry. I always like to bring this up, Nick. That pit entry, I've seen it catch out so many talented drivers.
Yeah, definitely. It looks kind of normal at first. It's a little bit of a blind entry, but then it just kind of flings you to the right and then back over to the left, kind of adding to the theme of Road Atlanta being a roller coaster. Even on pit road, you get some effects of the roller coaster here.
Unger now gets up to 4th. Oh, actually, no, Overbay just recently overtook him. Overbay's into 3rd now. Now, he's might not be able to get back out for another lap. He just went off because he was caught up in traffic. Still a great run. And actually, he's tied with Luke on time. Wow.
Yeah, they are tied at least to the 1,000th of a second. I'm sure somewhere down the order of decimals there's a tiebreaker, but very close racing. If that's any indication of how close these guys are going to be tonight, that is something.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. iRacing does measure it past that. You're right. And I used to know how many it goes down. From what I understand, it's quite a few. But as far as our timing and scoring has shown, Luke and Overbay incredibly evenly matched. Who are we waiting on still to put a lap in? Believe Unger might be able to jump Overbay. He's on a good lap right now. He's coming to the line. Again, he sits in 4th outside of row 2. Let's see what the Australians got underneath him. Oh, 15.6 is not going to be faster than his 15.3, so he'll get one more chance, and then he's done for quali. Rosie still has not been able to get higher than 6th. Under 63 car sitting on a 15.6, but his qualifying's over. He comes into the pits.
Matt Miles is on the backstretch now, coming into the chicane. He's in 5th right now, so a good performance for him so far in qualifying. He's trying to add to that.
Now, is this a new name? Did we have him last week? I'm trying to remember. He didn't show a lot if he was there. This time across is a 16.2. He's still got one more try, so he doesn't improve on his 5th. Owen McLaughlin down P10 out of the chicane. Looked a little bit rough. Don't know if this one's going to be faster than his 16.3. And it's not going to count at all. Checkered flag comes out. Looks like as we watch Huxley, actually ahead of him is Unger. Let's jump up to Unger. He's still trying to get better than 4th, and he's not going to get better. Huxley's actually going to abandon that lap. Julian comes in from P18. And other than that, I believe Matthew Miles and maybe Phil Gilman, the only other two that are able to finish their laps. Nick always on top of things. He's got the stats for Matt Miles already in his hands.
I had to go back and look, but yeah, Matt Miles did have a nice 8th place finish last week at Watkins Glen. Like he said, very quiet performance there, but still a lead lap finish for him in a very attrition-filled race. He's looking to add to that consistency to start the season. He's on a really good lap right now.
Down and across the line. Oh, but it doesn't count for Matthew Miles. So he'll stay in that 5th spot. And last one, Phil Gilman improves to an 18.7. That only takes him to 17th. Apologies to Matthew Miles and all of his fans for not recognizing him in that great performance. Let's go through the grid and look at those who've performed well at the start of today. We've got Christian Gritzko on the pole and Eric Luke next to him. Two drivers really looking for something today. Let's see if they can hold it out to the checkered flag. Overbay as well. Didn't have a perfect race. He still brought it home decently. P3 for him on the grid. David Unger coming from a podium. Will be looking to repeat that. He'll start from 4th. Matthew Miles will be 5th. And Rem Ambrosi starts on 6th position. Paul Wildridge, he won here last year after many around him fell by the wayside. He'll start from 7th today, so it's not impossible for him to repeat that feat. Eric Harmon will be 8th, and Curlin Andrew 9th. Curlin, unfortunately, making some critical errors, including running out of fuel last week. Owen McLaughlin will round out our top 10.
Behind Owen McLaughlin, there in 10th, it's going to be Christopher Richards in the number 49 Radical, starting behind him in 11th. The Canadian Danny Duchesne, he'd like to be as quick as the Canadian on the pole in Christian Gritzko, but Duchesne is going to have to fight his way up through the field. He starts 12th tonight. Behind them in the Baker's Dozen position, it is the 55 of Carson Quint. They'll have Andrew Spicer to his outside and Daniel Barnett behind him in 15th. Tyler Gore and Phil Guillaumin are going to be 16th and 17th. And Yeoman is joined alongside in row number 9 by Julian Huxley in the 322, the only driver out of Georgia tonight, so quite possibly his home track here. Ronald McManus was the last driver to get a qualifying time in. He'll start 19th. Ray Richer will have P20, and Brian Matthews will round out the 21-car field tonight at Road Atlanta.
Bit of a smaller field than what we saw at Watkins Glen. Road Atlanta not known for being unpopular, so I doubt it's due to that. Maybe just some schedule problems. As the clock ticks down, the engines start to rev. Lights are up. Green flag is out. Christian Gritzko good off the line. Oh, but the second half is bad. Oh, and Matthew Miles got into the back of Michael Overbay, who didn't get a good start, and there's a huge pileup of cars. We'll come back to that in a bit.
Up there.
Already, we didn't even get to the first corner, and we've got what we had last season, Nick, with many cars running into trouble.
Yeah, it was hard to tell what happened there. We'll look back in just a moment, but great battle is still going on up front, though.
Yeah, in fact, second place might change hands. David Unger looking to the inside of Gritzko down at a turn 6. Gritzko's going to fight him for it. They stay side by side, continuing to lose time to Eric Luke. Eventually, into turn 7, Unger gets by. The run off the corner goes to Gritzko. Behind them, Michael Overbay as well has going to have a slipstream. Gritzko, I think he got a little too close to Unger, had to lift for a second. And that's going to deny him the chance down towards the chicane. Unger goes defensive regardless. Overbay going to be able to get by. Gritzko outbrakes him into the chicane, moves into P3. So as they come across the line to complete the first lap, your leader is Luke. Second is Unger. Third is Overbay. Gritzko down to 4th from the pole. And Richards up to 5th from 11th.
Definitely a hectic and chaotic start. It's not done yet. I don't think Christian Gritzko currently looking to take a spot over Michael Overbay, but he's going to have to follow him and be pretty patient through the S's, I think.
Wow, something happened on the start with not just Overbay, with him getting a bit of, it's almost like he stalled for a second, but Gritzko, who got off the line, then suddenly slowed down for some reason, immediately lost out to Luke. And Luke has grabbed this opportunity with both hands. His gap is already 2 seconds over David Unger. I think we've got a little bit of a chance now, because most of the front of the field is spread out. Can we take a look at that replay? And what happened?
Something happened with Michael Overbay. And Matt Miles got in the back of him, but
we're going to watch it one more time. Yeah, Overbay's definitely the one we want the camera on. Looks like Spicer had some problems coming down the hill as well. But we're going to watch it, and it was almost similar, if anything worse, than what we saw from Gritzko, where Overbay started, and then suddenly the car just wouldn't go after that.
Yeah, exactly, and that got Miles into the back of him. Ambrosi, McLaughlin, and another car were involved pretty heavily in that.
So many cars blind. So many drivers coming in blind. It just was a chain reaction where he had no chance to respond. Unger trying to respond to Luke, but still at that consistent 2 seconds back. He challenged Padavani for all of last race until the pit stops, and then he had a slow pit stop and couldn't hold it. Danny Duchesne, maybe just a little bit too much damage for him. Not sure if maybe he's had something extra happen since the start. I'm checking to see if that's the case before we make a diagnostic. We're going to P3, and I can report we don't need a replay, but he got tangled up with Spicer and Huxley in turn 3.
Chaos all over the track for this race to start. We're looking at 3rd place right now. That's Michael Overbay. He's being chased heavily still by Christian Gritzko. And behind them, that's Christopher Richards, who's moved himself up to 5th from 11th right off the start.
Yeah, big credit to Richards. And there is some damage. You could see there on the rear wing as we look from Overbay. So that car might not be at 100%. Still, he's holding back Gritzko. In fact, he streaks away from him through turn 5. Now Richards instead threatening Gritzko, forcing him to go from attack to defense.
I think Overbay's saving grace is going to be the fact that his wing is intact. It's just the rear car around the engine area that seems to be in rough shape for him. But yeah, like you said, Gritzko under attack now from Christopher Richards. He's getting a big run down the backstretch, trying to pick up with all that slipstream.
Gritzko looking a little bit like what we saw with Wildridge last race. Could he potentially find himself a surprise win? It might be a little too early to start thinking about that. He is only 6 seconds off of the leader of the race. And Gritzko looking very good on the final few corners. Absolutely blows away from Christopher Richards. Now onto the back of Overbay once again. Coming up to turn 3, this blind right-hander as they get right up to the curb. Both of them looking very clean and smooth through there.
A lot of times we see GTE cars or touring cars come up through this area of the track and get on those curbs, and it doesn't seem to bother them too much. But these guys have to be really careful. These radicals are really close to the ground. They don't want to damage anything underneath either.
It's a lot closer for a fight back in 11th. This is Spicer, who, remember I said got into it with Duchesne.
Oh, Gritzko just went off.
Oh, no. He had 3 spins last race. What happened with this one? It's another loss of control. We're on the replay now.
Turn 6. This is an interesting place because it doesn't look like necessarily in turn 6. It's coming kind of in between 6 and 7 coming out of the turn.
It looks like he was trying to catch the car multiple times, and then, as they say, he ran out of racetrack. And you made note last race how his car just didn't look stable, and he comes into the pits after that. Oh, as he bangs into the wall on pit entry. Well, that's not going to make it any more stable, but I don't know what setup he's using, but it looks like it's still just not working for him.
Yeah, it's really on edge, either super fast at the time or just super crazy loose. As we're taking a look back at P11 once again. Yeah, something in that car I think he's got to get figured out in the aero department.
This is onboard Spicer looking back at Phil Gilman. Both of these drivers have come forward a fair bit. Spicer from 14th on the grid, Gilman from 17th to 12th. They're coming down through the S's. Up towards the tricky turn 5. Oh, and side-by-side action for 7th. Paul Wildridge manages to get by Tyler Gore. That was a mistake from Gore. Got it on replay.
This looks like it's coming out of turn 5 and down into 6 and 7.
No, it wasn't a mistake from Gore. Gore just looks like maybe he thought Wildridge is too fast, and look, he pulls over and slows up.
Which is interesting because Gore came back side by side with him, didn't make the pass down into the chicane, but looked like he was still wanting to race him. So
Paul Wildridge, he actually started in 7th, and that pass put him back in 7th. He might be another one of those drivers who was slowed up or damaged even by the opening wreck. And oh, this is McManus making a move on Julian Huxley. Textbook maneuver into the chicane.
Yeah, I got that big run down the backstretch and into the chicane, able to keep it, or able to make it stick, and I think we're going to end up seeing that a lot tonight. One of the more driver-friendly places to pass on this track.
He's holding on to the back of McManus ever since he got by, so not going to let him run away with it too quickly. We can stay with this, but I just want to report that Ungers closed the gap in down to 1.1 seconds on Eric Luke. And he's just at the fastest lap of the race, too. Ooh, that Unger is coming. This is the
fast last week. I'm not surprised to see this speed out of him this week.
And the only driver who could challenge him last week isn't here today. Padavani, nowhere to be seen. This is not good news for Eric Luke, the 09. Again, yet to win a race in this Radical Series and has come very, very close multiple times. I'm sure he doesn't like us bringing it up over and over again, but if anything, I'm almost a bit of a cheerleader for him. I kind of want to see him get one eventually.
And Eric Luke not just looking for redemption on his PRL Radical career, but also from last week. He started that race fourth, was really fast early on, but got caught up in the carnage and finished, I believe it was outside the top 20.
Yeah, Luke was the one that spun into the same spot twice in a row last week. Both of them of his own doing, unfortunately. Unger with another fastest lap, and that time he was half a second faster than Eric Luke.
He's getting bigger and bigger in the mirrors.
This is going to be a difficult task for Eric Luke to hold him behind. Number 19 is flying, and they've still got 34 minutes. We're only 10 minutes into this race. There's still a lot to go.
He might even be close enough to get a little bit of toe down here on the backstretch and be able to maybe start to look for a slingshot.
Well, let's watch. We're riding on board with Unger. Closing in. I'm keeping half an eye on the time and his scoring. Yes, he is. Gap is going down. He's got a whiff of that slipstream. He's got enough to attack unless he's really desperate. He's going to take a little peek, but comes back to the racing line now. Looking for a better opportunity. I'm sure he's aware that he's much faster. So, we talked about the attrition last week, but I think this one has topped it already, Nick. We've only got, let's see, is this right? 12 cars still running of our 20 starters?
Yeah, we finished last week with 10, and we thought that was a lot of, or we thought that was a small number, but hopefully we don't lose any more drivers tonight. It's a good racing they have on track right now.
Well, that was 10 on the lead lap, though, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think we had, yeah, more than that running. Even still, yeah, this is, well, we could be down to 5 cars on the lead lap, depending on how this goes. Still nothing from Unger quite yet, but they come back to the backstretch. Unger is a lot closer, about 2/10 closer to Luke this time compared to last lap. Should this offer him an opportunity? He's going to try for it. He's got it once again. Number 19. He's in the tire tracks. Now he pokes out. He's got the inside. No defense from Eric Luke. He lets him through. The lead goes back to David Unger.
Little puff of smoke you saw there through the chicane. He locked it up too, so he was being real aggressive trying to outbrake him, but he did a fine job of it. Let's see what Eric Luke has for him, if anything here, though, on the counterattack.
They're coming up the lap traffic. This is Julian Huxley. Huxley actually was a bit of a problem car last week in terms of traffic. Unfortunately, some of the battling cars up at the top of the pack did make contact with him. Here's hoping he can just get out of the way here. Oh, this is holding up Unger horribly. This is great news for Luke, though.
That's such a horrible place to pass someone. It's so hard to pull over through the S's there.
Well, you really don't want to pull over, if anything. So, you know, credit to Huxley there for avoiding the temptation to try to leap out of the way. He waited till the track was clear and let them through. Luke is very, very close. We may see him retake the position, Nick.
This is definitely going to offer him at least an opportunity. It depends on how bold he is here early in the race. I think he's looking. He's going to look to the left here. No, it looks like he might be ducking back in line. Not going to take advantage of it this time through the chicane. Nonetheless, though, it's going to really keep him on the back bumper.
Our champion from last season is trailing them right now. This is on board with Luke. We watch our leader just ahead. Overbay is in third, but about 6 seconds back. And I don't believe he's been gaining the last few laps. Maybe a little bit, actually. Do the S's one more time. Luke still trailing. Maybe this is the reason Luke wasn't really interested in defending too hard.
This looks so similar to the battle that David Unger was involved in last week at Watkins Glen with Jefferson Padovani. And that battle was broken up by pit stops. David Unger did not get a good stop, and he lost out on the lead. Didn't get to see Eric Luke make a competitive pit stop last week, so that might offer him an opportunity if he is able to excel in that.
Some more lap traffic in front of them. Ronald McManus now. This is the car in 11th. So we're just about to hit what we mentioned before. Oh, not at this corner. He manages to stay out of the way, but it was certainly not advantageous for Eric Luke. Just parked it on the apex. This is still our closest battle. That's why we haven't shown much of the rest of the field. Luke a little hot into turn 3. Ooh, this is not looking good for Eric, Nick.
Yeah, I think he just got set off just a little bit by McManus way on the outside of turn 5. That's such a dangerous turn here at Road Atlanta, especially in these radicals to get your car unsettled.
And it's now 1.3 seconds.
Yeah.
That might be exactly what Unger needed. 1.4 seconds onto the backstretch. Luke, I'm pretty certain at this point, has lost the draft. And the gap continues to grow. The 09 may have just lost his meal ticket.
Definitely looked like he was overdriving that lap. I think he was set off a little by McManus, like I said, but he's going to have to work hard to get that position back.
So let's look at Overbay, who himself is going to have or has so far had the quiet race. Had a number of drivers do that last time. Number 68 car started in 3rd. Got a shot from the back that's very apparent from what you saw in that camera angle previously. But otherwise has been dealing with it admirably.
Yeah, it's a long way back to the next car of Christopher Richards, who's just now coming through turn 1, so he's got definitely a comfortable gap.
I remember Gritzko had his off earlier. That handed Richards 4th place now from his 11th starting spot. Behind him, how about Curlin Andrew, though? Andrew, I mentioned, just didn't have a very happy race at Watkins Glen. But the number 12 car started in 9th today and is currently running in the top 5. He won the opening round at Spa last season here in the Radicals. Didn't win after that. Was a bit of a contender in a few places. Today could be another chance to maybe sneak a podium in.
Andrew's another one that had a DNF last week, so more redemption for him as well. Added to that race, added to this race.
These drivers have spread themselves quite far apart. We still got the top 10 on the lead lap, and Unger actually has got a ways to go to get to the next car, which is going to be Phil Gilman, the number 96. Phil's one who started 17th. Don't think he'll be unhappy with this. And I have to admit, something about his paint scheme reminds me of the old Williams cars from the late 70s and early 80s. That green and white with some gold trim on it. Beautiful color scheme.
Yes, I can see it.
Glad to get Phil a little bit of screen time here without there being a wreck involved. "25 minutes left to go. We are firmly in the pit window. Started maybe about 5 minutes ago. We've had no takers for scheduled stops. We've had plenty of cars in for unscheduled stops. Some of them have actually come back out since and increased our car count, thankfully. Matthew Miles, one of them. He's 7 laps down, but he's running 13th. We've also got Eric Harmon back out there. He's 8 laps down, and he's running P15. Make that 14th now. Karsten Quint, who seems to have had a DNF when we weren't looking, has been lapped by the number 617. Also being lapped by Daniel Barnett, who gets up to 15th. And then behind him, not too far back, we could have a battle here for some of the lower positions. Danny Duchesne giving chase to the number 66 of Barnett. And in fact, I think Barnett's damaged. He's closing in a very high rate of knots.
He definitely is. He makes matters worse. He gets stuck on that curbing on the outside. Duchesne looking. They get by Julian Huxley.
Barnett going defensive. He doesn't care how much faster he is. He's going to make him work for the position. Duchesne does work for it, going the long way around at turn 7. Barnett still manages to get the power down sooner than Duchesne, but there's a lot of damage you can see on that car. And as they start to top out Duchesne's own damage, unfortunately keeping him from still being able to get past the orange and blue car of the number 66. Braking for the chicane. He's given space at the apex, but he doesn't have the speed.
Yeah, Duchesne gonna have to fall back in line with him. This is gonna be interesting. Both cars, like you said, really struggling with damage, so whose damage is gonna hurt them more in the arrow?
But it definitely seems like Duchesne's faster in some of these twisty sections. Maybe he's got more downforce. Whoa, a big bobble from Barnett, but he collects it together. No chance to pass through the S's. This is where Duchesne wants to get himself a good shot off of turn 5.
They're a lot cleaner through turn 5 this time. That's going to allow Duchesne. I thought it was going to allow Duchesne to close in, but it looked like a really good exit for Barnett as well.
Back stretch once again. This is a battle for 15th. Danny did not look very strong on the loud pedal, unfortunately. Barnett gets himself some tiny bit of breathing space, but the draft will bring the yellow car back in.
He wasn't able to take advantage last time. He's not going to get close enough to make a pass here, but is he going to be able to get close enough to stay in touch? He gets a good exit out of the chicane. Back down onto the front stretch. What kind of run does Duchesne get here? Holds it flat out, and I definitely think he gained a little bit there on Barnett.
And I think we've got a scheduled stop happening. Tyler Gore is in. Paul Wildridge as well. There you see them on your screen, both hitting their stalls.
Yeah, we're definitely right in the thick of the window right now. A couple of the drivers further back through the field. Gore was in 9th when he came in. Wildridge was 7th.
This is almost exactly halfway. I suspect that's what's going on between these cars. Not making anything fancy with their strategy. Wildridge completes his and returns. Now, the top 2 cars are starting to gain on one another. We don't have to go to it, but I can report that Barnett just had a little wheel spin and Duchesne got by for that P15. But we want to stay with this because Eric Luke, who is a whole second and a half back from Unger, has cut it down to half a second.
Yeah, Eric Luke has been working really hard to make the most of every lap so far because he has indeed closed that gap on Unger. I don't know if he's going to be able to be close enough here to get slipstream. He might pick up a whiff of it. Just enough to start to bring him in. It was down as close as 0.4 of a second at one point as I kept glancing back over at the timing screen. Down to 20 minutes left to go. And very strong under braking. Gets it down to half a second there, does Eric Luke. They've got some traffic in front of them. This is Rem Ambrosi, who's returned to the track.
Ambrosi involved in that lap 1 accident. And he's the last car running right now. 22 minutes of repairs for him just to get back out onto the circuit. He's trying to lap a car while he's being lapped. That was Phil Gilman trying to stay out of the way. Now Ambrosie's splitting our top two.
And I think that's going to hurt Eric Luke here pretty badly. That might not be as badly as I thought. He's definitely going to... He gets by Ambrosie there. And now his direction shifts once again to trying to catch Unger here on the backstretch.
Luke stays within those 0.6 of a second on David Unger from Down Under. He was much closer this time compared to last time. Is this going to be enough? The gap is going down. Also giving a nice little tow to Ambrosie, who's just going to ride their coattails as that lapped car.
I think if Eric Luke puts together a good... Oh, they are headed for the pits.
Both of them on the same lap, too, interestingly. Oh, but look at how strong Luke is coming in. He gained a lot of time right there.
Yeah, he did indeed. He was able to wait all the way to the last second to slam on the brakes and throw on the pit limiter. Did a fantastic job to close that gap and probably ended up gaining a lot of ground. Overbay in as well.
This was Unger's weakness last week. Has he figured out how much fuel he needs this time around? Eric Luke is in front of him. Eric Luke took the pole. Andrew continues on. He does not pit, so he'll take the lead temporarily. Unger starts going out almost exactly the same time. Oh, that was close.
Eric Luke got a bad jump, but he did leave at about the same time. Just couldn't accelerate nearly as fast as Unger. So a little bit of a gap, but definitely a manageable one here for Luke to close in on the back of Unger still.
I had to check just to be sure. Unger did not speed in the pits, so he won't get a penalty. I thought maybe, because I was surprised how quickly he got by. McLaughlin finishing his stop. Looks like he'll inherit 6th place. Just behind Richards. Krillin Andrew, who is our leader, is the last of 2 cars that need their stop. Julian Huxley is the other one. And there he goes. The Banana Split team splits for the pit lane. So this is going to give the lead back to David Unger. Luke came out at such a close time. I thought that he would be fewer car lengths behind the number 19, but he dropped back to almost a second.
Yeah, they came out basically side by side. I think maybe Luke was just hesitant to keep the power in it. Maybe he thought he might get pinched in between the wall and Unger. I was watching the wall on the right side of him coming out of his pit stalls. So maybe that was part of it. Maybe he just couldn't get it up through the gears as quickly.
This is true. So Eric Luke, brave on the brakes going into the pits, but not necessarily brave on the gas coming out, at least when challenged with a game of chicken. Phil Gilman taking, I think this is his 2nd stop. I'm pretty sure he's had one before this. Oh, he had some problems. Did he have contact? This was in the chicane, maybe about a minute ago. Yeah, he had contact.
Richards behind him.
Right here. And it's a light touch. It almost looked like netcode from my screen. But maybe it hit his suspension the wrong way.
I think it looks like he had lost it already. He was trying to save it.
Yeah. So I definitely wouldn't put this one on Richards. So Eric Luke, since we last looked, did chop it down by about half a second to David Unger. But we've seen this now already. where he gets up close behind him, but it's almost like he stalls out, or maybe David Unger is just managing the gap.
He definitely might be. It seems like Eric Luke sometimes in the corners really has a tendency to overdrive himself. That's got to be hurting him. He seems to be getting in a little too hot in a couple different corners. And even though he'll be on a good lap, it'll take one little bobble in a corner like that to mess up the whole lap.
Keeping the pressure on. This is very similar to last race, except for the pit stops. Hopefully we have a nice run to the line. Roles are a little bit reversed, though. Unger is now the prey. Luke is now the predator, trying to do what he can to see if he can get his first win in the PRL Radical Series.
Less than 15 minutes left, riding on board with Luke.
And I'm wondering if my timing and scoring is just wrong here, but I see Julian Huxley still missing a pit stop. And I guess they could still be within the pit window, maybe just everybody else elected to come in. I mean, this doesn't strike me as a terribly thirsty track.
It does have a couple of straightaways.
There he goes.
Yeah, there he goes. It's a 22nd lap for him.
That's our last car to take their stop. Let's run us down the top 10 real quick and give you an update in case you're just joining us. David Unger is leading, but he started from 4th place. He's one of the cars that was able to avoid a first lap. In fact, before the first corner incident with much of the field. Eric Luke, who was on the pole, is behind him. Excuse me, Eric Luke was on the outside of the front row, was behind him for much of the race. Led for a couple of the laps, but Unger was much faster and ran him down. Since then, Luke has been applying a little bit of pressure, but hasn't been able to make an overtake on the Australian. Michael Overbay is looking to get a podium. It was his teammate who won last round, but Overbay won the championship last season. This will effectively be a good kickstart to his points, since he unfortunately had to settle for, I believe it was 6th last round. If we look back, much farther back, 12 seconds to Christopher Richards. Might seem like a big gap, but you have to remember, 11th place on the grid for the number 49 car. He took advantage of avoiding all the action in front of him with that first lap crash, and has now got himself into 4th. Curlin Andrew as well, going from 9th on the grid here to a top 5. A much needed good finish if you can just hold it here for the rest of the race. What's the rest of the top 10 look like, Nick?
Well, looking back to P6, maybe just about 45 seconds or a minute ago, Owen McLaughlin had a little bit of an off track. A scary moment for him as he almost came in to the wall through the S's. But he runs P6 right now after starting in 10th place. Paul Wildridge is behind him in 7th place. Or actually, I believe Tyler Gore. No, Paul Wildridge overtook him. Tyler Gore is behind them in 8th. McManus and Huxley are at least one lap down behind them in 9th and 10th right now.
So only 8 cars left on the lead lap. Unger's still got a little ways to go before he gets to Tyler Gore, but I would not put it beyond his reach to say that he will lap the number 77. Oh, something happened to Luke. Luke is now 6 seconds behind. I'm checking to see. Oh,
yeah,
there was
turn
2
one.
offs at this. Yeah.
Looked like.
There was that, and then he had a problem in turn 3 as well. We'll have to jump a long ways back. Let's see if we can find it. This was in turn 1, and then an issue in turn 3 on top of it. Oh, I think we've got it here. Or no, we're still live, I think.
It looked to me that what happened was Luke lost it in the exit of turn 1, tried to get it gathered back up through 2 and 3, and he ended up taking the access road there, the club circuit, to get himself back on the track.
We'll see if this is far enough back. I'm not sure if this was on the lap we were just on, or... Yeah, I think we've got it. Yeah, because that's him right up there. That's Unger just ahead of him. Yeah, watch him straddle this curb on the exit.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what happened. Got up on the curbing of turn 1 on the exit, like you said.
Maybe just too rattled, and because I didn't see a real good reason for him to mess up turn 3, but that gave him a slowdown penalty and added to his frustration. This gives David Unger a very easy run to the line as long as he can keep from making mistakes himself. Only 9, maybe about 10 minutes on the clock we're seeing.
And despite having that issue, Eric Luke still has a really comfortable gap all the way back to Michael Overbay. That is a big gap right now between second and third.
Yeah, 16 and a half seconds from Luke to Overbay. At this point, Michael is effectively just running some practice laps and doing what he can to bring it home to the checkers. Really, the closest fight I think we've got is for 6th place. Paul Wildridge and Owen McLaughlin. You can see about 2.5 seconds between them.
Yeah. McLaughlin just heading uphill into the S's now. Wildridge heads downhill, so a little bit of a gap between them, but wouldn't put it past McLaughlin to be able to close in on him. He's got 8 minutes and 40 seconds to do so, definitely a bit of time.
I'm trying to see. I thought I spotted a little bit of damage on one of them. Maybe it was Wildridge, because we're looking at McLaughlin right now, and I didn't see any on him.
Looks like the rear of Wildridge has a bit of damage. Remember, these are teammates too. The Crash for Cash guys out there.
It's a little bit of left front of the fender. Looks to be bent up on Paul Wildridge. But it's not slowing him down. That gap's actually gone up. It's 3 seconds from the 67 back to the number 5. And bad news for Eric Luke fans. What was 6 seconds after his initial mistakes has gone up now to 7.5. David Unger has turned the wick up despite having a healthy lead. Taking no chances, trying to stay in his rhythm, keep himself safe in case he does have his own mistake. Good news is, so many of these cars have come back out. I think because it was such a mess, a lot of drivers figured I can still get good points if I can get the car back out on track.
Yeah, every position equals an extra bit of points, so long 10-race season for these guys this year, and if the drivers are planning on running all 10 races, they don't want to make this race, or any of them really, one of their drop weeks.
Now, Matthew Miles is in the pit for a second time, checking to see if he's had an issue, but I seem to recall he had an issue early on, so it may be just he was outside of his pit window. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything, so...
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened. He came in really early, so he... this would be about 23 or 24 laps later for him to pit, I believe.
Yep, that sounds about as far as he can go. Going on to McLaughlin here, the Californian. Not losing huge chunks of time up to his teammate Wildridge. It's now up to 3.7 seconds. And for those curious, our DNFs for today are actually Karsten Quint, Christian Gritzko, and I think Brian Matthews and Ray Richer were DNFs, or DNSs, did not start. Eric Harmon has come into the pits as well.
Might be a similar situation for him. He came in, he was involved in that lap 1 accident as well, so I would expect him to have pit very early.
Yeah, that seems about right to me. See the damage on the nose. He's finished his stop and returning to the track. We're talking about Tyler Gore maybe getting lapped. And actually he just got lapped. So just recently, the number 77, unfortunately overtaken by the leader. That leaves us with 7 cars on the lead lap now. There is our car leading the way. David Unger missed out on last week's win. The sun might be setting here in Atlanta. We're at almost 8 p.m. virtual standard time down in Georgia. But I think he's going to make up for it today. He's going to come home with a victory if things stay as they are. This is only round 2. Padavani will definitely need to use this one as his drop week. But Unger, if he stays where he is, a first and a second will easily extend him over much of the field. In fact, I'm trying to think, Overbay's probably the only other driver, I think, within the top 10 that's going to be finishing high in the field here today. Oh, and Richards and Andrews have swapped positions. Richards in turn 3 with an issue. We should be able to get this on replay. Maybe about 40 seconds back. Let's see if we can find it.
Yeah, through the S's. Richards, it was getting woed up for that turn 3, that sharp right-hander. And just like we saw Eric Luke do, he tried to save himself, I think, by going on the club circuit.
So Richards hasn't gotten by him. We're riding on board on the replay. You'll see it here into turn 3. This is 1. And then up the crest, 2 is a little left jink. And then 3 has caught so many drivers out over the years, it adds another to its tally. Just has to ride over. Oh, but a big bump. Whoa. That could have gone worse.
He's holding on to that position for now. We're holding on to 4th still. But Curlin Andrew is there, and with just a little bit of time left, 2.5 minutes, he's got enough time, I think, to be able to get some slipstream on the backstretch or somewhere and close that gap even more.
Yeah, I'm sure Curlin is licking his chops after something of a lonely race. The thought of a position right at the end could make him very happy. Report that Matthew Miles is pulled off just because he has no other cars that he can snipe in terms of position.
Andrew got a bad turn 6 and 7 there. Really bad exit. That being said, though, I think he's still got a whiff of the slipstream.
Does he have the straight line speed, though? Look at the nose of that banana split car.
Ooh, yeah.
It's not looking healthy. I mean, it's only a little damage, so maybe if he gets close enough, that'll really help. They're going to get the white flag next time by. So they've got essentially 2 laps left to go.
He's going to have to push it hard, but at the same time, he doesn't want to push too hard. He doesn't want to throw away this 5th place finish for him.
I think Richards is responding, actually. He started to pull away. It's now up to 9/10 of a second.
It kind of looks that way. I mean, Richards had great pace over him before that incident, so and the number 49 of Chris Richards wasn't damaged at all either, so not too surprised to see him be able to pull away a little bit.
You can see final lap now up on your screen. And indeed, Richards pulls away unless he makes another error. I don't think Andrews has got anything for him. Let's go to our leader, David Unger from Down Under, number 19 from the second row of the grid, looking like he could potentially take his first win of the season and the series. Out of turn 7, foot to the floor, gaining speed down the rolling backstretch. It isn't totally straight. He's lapped everyone up to 7th place, Owen McLaughlin. Oh, but Curlin Andrews in the pits. We'll have to go back to that in a second. Not sure what happened with Curlin Andrew. He's falling down the order. That is disappointing. David Unger, in the meantime, not disappointed in the least. The number 19 takes the victory here at Road Atlanta.
Behind them, Luke is coming through the chicane and coming up to turn 12, the last turn. That was a hard-fought race for him, but he's going to fall just short. It is a lot better of a result than last week, but he is going to finish in second. Overbay behind them. He's coming into the chicane right now.
It's a lapped car in front of him, Ronald McManus. First car lap down. No, excuse me, second car lap down. So no need for him to overtake. Overbay with a well-earned podium. Gets to spray the champagne. And Richards withstands the pressure to take a P4 from 11th on the grid. No real other battles happening. Andrew actually managed to get back out before he got lapped, by Unger. And let's see if we can figure out what happened. Did you see if he had an accident or?
I didn't see anything. Briefly. We'll take a look here.
I almost wonder if this is another fuel issue. Remember, he ran out of fuel on his way to the pits last time. Let's listen.
Yeah, that's fuel.
Curlin. You need a Texas Instruments for the Texan. So we come back live. That's going to be it for now. We do have more of the broadcast left to go. Stick around because we'll have the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. But on screen, we're going to see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC.
Hello from Dream Vacations. We look forward to helping you plan a cruise vacation where you can race your friends on the top deck while cruising the oceans, or you can compete with your friends in style with virtual reality racing on board. If cruising is not for you, we can send you to Germany where you can challenge the ring, or whisk you off to Abu Dhabi to take on the world's fastest roller coaster in Ferrari World. Whatever your dream vacation may be, let Dream Vacations handle the details and make that dream into a reality. Visit us at www.travelwithanangel.com.
Welcome back to Road Atlanta Round 2 here in Season 2 of 2019 for the PRL Radical Racing Series. And David Unger from a second place last week goes one step higher and takes his first victory in the season. Eric Luke still looking for that first win, but another second place is going to be a high haul of points. And Michael Overbay as well, bumping himself up to third after late race mistakes at Watkins Glen. I'm sure he'll be glad to get himself onto the podium. Christopher Richards gets a fourth with Paul Wildridge taking P5. Owen McLaughlin finishes sixth, and amazingly, the last car to finish on the lead lap is going to be Curlin Andrew, an extra pit stop for him with another fuel calculation error. Tyler Gore takes P8, and Ronald McManus finishes ninth. Julian Huxley from 18th will come out 10th at the end of the day.
In 11th place, 7 laps down, it's going to be Phil Guillaumin in the 96. 12th place goes to Matt Miles, who wasn't quite able to run all the miles that the lead lap cars were able to finish tonight. He's going to finish 8 laps down ahead of Eric Harmon and Danny Duchesne, 13th and 14th. Rounding out the top 15, it's Daniel Barnett in the number 66, followed by Andrew Spicer and Ram Ambrosi. That's the first car that got caught up in that big lap 1 incident that really suffered throughout the whole race because of it. Karsten Quint, another one there. He's going to finish 18th. Christian Gritzko, I believe, a DNF, 30 laps down in 19th. Ray Richer and Brian Matthews, they did not start 20th and 21st.
And we've got our winner ready to talk to us, David Unger, who should be our points leader now. David, off the start, you looked really good, but I think the biggest help was probably the fact that you were ahead of all the madness.
Yeah, what happened there?
Well, it looked like Unger, Overbay, rather, had a bad start, and it caused a big checkup, and from there, it just all fell apart. But you had to work a little bit for it. You ran down Eric Luke, and he didn't seem to fight you, but then he held on. Were you thinking to yourself, oh no, am I going to get a repeat of what happened at Watkins Glen?
That's exactly what I was thinking. It just hounded me.
It certainly looked like he was. He was riding your coattails. Then the mistake came. He dropped off. Now, you improved greatly on the pit stop. He came in with you. He almost actually got you, but you came out side by side and you wound up getting it. Did you actually focus on your pit stops this week? Did you do a little research, see how much fuel was needed? What was done that helped improve?
Well, there was a couple of things. Last week, I don't know exactly what happened there. I thought I had the car in gear. I had me put on the clutch. I was ready to go. And then when I dumped the clutch, nothing. So this week, I was definitely more focused on that.
So it was a clutch problem last week. Well, you've got a win in your pocket. You've got a second place. This is going to be a fascinating championship, especially since Padavani didn't show up this one. I mean, what are your thoughts now that you're 2 races in? I always tend to ask drivers, are you thinking championship? Is it not even on your mind?
No, not at all. Like I said last week, you take one race at a time. If I'm the leader at the end of the series, all well and good.
Well, right now you are the leader. It's not over yet, but you've set yourself up well. Congratulations on a victory.
Thank you very much.
That was Dave Unger from Down Under taking the win here in round 2. I believe up next we've got second place Eric Luke. Nick is ready to talk to him.
Indeed, Eric Luke, the driver out of Florida, coming home with the second place finish. And Eric, you got through the lap 1 madness. You were ahead of him starting on the outside pole, but after that, you seem to be able to pull away from everyone, at least for a little bit.
Yeah, so with the start, I was able to pull a 2-second gap, and then just I kept watching the relative and to see where David was, and he was quicker on the back half of the track, and I had more speed on the front half of the track, and then I just made some unforced errors and then just tried to stick with him from there.
Yeah, he got by you kind of coming out of nowhere, at least from our perspective. You were watching him on the relative, you said, but then you were staying together until pit road, and you did a fantastic job getting on pit road. little bit of hesitation coming off pit road. What happened there to open that gap back up?
Well, coming out of the pits, I did get a little bit of a jump on David, and we were kind of exiting pit row at the same time. And what had happened later in the race, or earlier before we pitted, was that there was some lap traffic that got between David and I. And David, being the gentleman that he is, he basically stayed where he was and didn't just take off while I tried to navigate the lap traffic. So because of that, and then on top of it, I also still had my pit limiter on trying to exit. So that's where that little bit of gap came from. But I wanted to give him back that first place coming back out of pits.
Okay, that answers our question from the broadcast, but very nice to see the scholarliness between all of the drivers. After that, coming back on track, trying to chase him back down, did you seem like you were just overdriving it, or was he just purely faster with you in the setup as well?
I wasn't trying to overdrive it. I just made a really, really bad unforced error going into turn 1, which took me off track, and then I had to do the cut through and then slow down after that. And I was able to keep a pretty sane pace behind him. The draft on the back straight helped out a lot. But I would catch right back up to him in the first part of the track going through the S's, and then he'd kind of gap it from there, and I'd pull it back. So it was kind of back and forth. And like I said, I just made way too many errors to stay with him unforced.
Yeah, this is a lot better, I'm sure, at least in your eyes, than your results. I believe it was 21st or 22nd last week at Watkins Glen. We do have our first non-North American race next week at Monza. Are you excited to go there and start putting together some solid finishes, or not one of your favorite tracks?
I'm not a big fan of Monza. Setup is going to be imperative there. Everybody's pretty much going to have a rocket ship, so hopefully we'll have some fun draft passing all over the place.
All right, well, it should be fun, hopefully. We get another great show out of you, and hopefully sometime, at least if not next week, later on in the season, we'll be able to talk to you again.
I hope so. I look forward to it, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
That was second place Eric Luke. We've got third place finisher Michael Overbay joining us. And Michael, I'm going to start with the $1 million question. Everybody wants to know, what happened at the start? Michael, do you have a copy? He's too sheepish to answer the question, it seems. We'll try and let him get his mic hooked up. Michael, of course, started the race in third and finished in third, but he had a bit of damage, unfortunately, from that contact right off the line, and caused a lot of damage for other cars. Michael, I see you flashing.
There we go.
There we go. So what happened at the start, Michael?
So my screen, it blacked out whenever I hit grid, and I had no screen, so I'm hitting buttons, trying to get it to come up. Evidently, I must have hit my pit limiter at some point, and when we took off, my pit limiter was on, and I couldn't hit it quick enough, and they bumped me. Or they hit me, so I apologize to absolutely everybody behind me and all that carnage. Oh, it was horrible.
Of all the explanations, I was not expecting that one, I have to admit. So let's go a little bit farther ahead so that you don't have to dwell on that. You had Gritzko putting a little bit of pressure on you after that. Do you feel like you deal with those pressure situations pretty well? Are you pretty good running in front of people, or are you more of a chaser?
No, I'm okay either way usually, but I had damage. I'm surprised he didn't just blow by me on the straight. I was kind of waiting for him to, and he never just put it out there to do that. So I don't know if he was just kind of backing off of it, because I was about 8 kilometers slower down the straight than I should have been with that, damage at the beginning.
So not only do you have Padavani to worry about this season with the speed that he's got, but it looks like David Unger is going to give both of you a run for your money. What are your thoughts looking at him?
Oh, David's quick. We knew it coming in that David was going to be quick. So far, I haven't been able to put any real time into the series like I wanted to. Unfortunately, had a lot of other commitments that I've been doing, but hopefully here the next few races I can put a little more time in, and hopefully Jefferson will be back and we can put some more time in and catch up with David. But he's used to this car. He's really good in this car, and he's the kind of the class of the field right now, I think. So he'll be the guy to beat.
It looks to be the case for that. So congratulations on getting yourself into third and withstanding the damage and getting over a bit of an embarrassing mistake. It's been a good day for you, it seems.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say thanks to Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing and you guys also, and Eric Blue for some help there in practice. So thanks a lot, guys.
That was Michael Overbay, third place today here at Road Atlanta. But we're going to close up for the PRL Radical Racing Series. And we want to thank Dream Vacations for sponsoring this season. Again, if you want to check them out at travelwithanangel.com. Also, a thank you goes to iRacing for putting us on the iRacing Esports Network. If you would like to subscribe to their YouTube channel, all you got to do is click the big red button that says subscribe on their YouTube page. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. You can see them listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Nick, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media. It's GSR Channel for Twitter, Facebook is Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram is GSRC_Graham. The next race, as we mentioned, we're going to Monza. That'll be Thursday, April 4th at 9 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. See you on the track.